Welcome back to Movie Moshow. Today we are going to review the science fiction film, Tomorrowland. If you like our content, don't forget to like and subscribe. We post multiple times daily. Spoilers ahead. When a female voice interrupts Frank Walker, George Clooney, while he is speaking to an unseen audience about the future and asks him to recall a time when he thought of it as an optimistic place, he recalls going to the 1964 World's Fair in New York City as a child. Young Frank, Thomas Robinson, eagerly enters the Hall of Inventions carrying a very large duffel bag containing his invention, a jetpack. A little child named Athena, Raffi Cassidy, seems to believe Frank's invention has potential, even if the judge David Nix, Hugh Laurie, does not seem overly enthusiastic about the device, which Frank confesses does not operate correctly. Outside the hall, Athena catches up with Frank. She asks him to follow her behind a small group and hands him a pin. Frank dons the pin and joins the group at the It's a Small World attraction, where he skips the line and boards one of the boats by himself. The group also includes Mr. Nix and several of his guests. He suddenly falls down a hidden chute, underneath the coaster, when a laser scans his pin during the ride. After a dizzying voyage, Frank finds himself on a foggy platform, but he notices a strange flying vehicle take off nearby, with Athena waving to him. The boat Frank is on then pulls up to a small transport station. Frank tries to follow, but he ends up perched on a platform. Construction robots appear out of nowhere, erecting new buildings while lowering Frank to a lower level. A robot nearby snatches his jetpack as it clatters on the platform. Frank struggles to recover his creation, but he is taken aback when the enormous robot restores it. Frank accidentally falls from this platform as well, but after turning on his jetpack, he discovers himself floating above a brilliant white cityscape that is unlike anything he has ever seen. After a while, he spots Athena and the others and lands just in front of Mr. Nix, who doesn't appear overly thrilled by the fact that Frank's invention can actually fly. Frank then becomes pessimistic once more as the female voice interjects that he is sounding negative once more. Despite this, Athena gives the young kid a reassuring grin. The unidentified voice agrees to continue telling the story when Frank requests it. Afterward, Casey Newton, Britt Robertson, is introduced, who proudly declares that she is an optimist. After giving us a brief glimpse of a young Casey naming stars in the night sky, the scene shifts to the present. Casey sneaks into a NASA launch pad being destroyed in Cape Canaveral, Florida one late night. 3 construction cranes are destroyed by her. Her father informs her that the end of the previous launch site for the space shuttle is unavoidable when she gets home. Unseen by Casey, a shadowy figure follows her from the NASA site to her home and stealthily inserts a small pin into her helmet while hanging from her motorcycle handlebar. The following day, Casey's father Eddie, Tim McGraw, laments that despite being a NASA engineer, there isn't much hope for him to accomplish anything useful. He is reminded of the parable of the 2 wolves by Casey, who is always upbeat, light and hope, darkness and despair. Eddie once told Casey that the person you feed would ultimately win. Casey attends school but causes trouble in every class she attends. Casey hears that NASA has brought in working equipment from Orlando to continue disassembling the platform, so she goes out to stop them but is caught by NASA security. After her father releases her from jail, Casey gathers her things but is startled to find a small pin with a message on it. How can we fix it? Her teachers tell of nuclear annihilation, planetary meltdown, and governmental collapse, but Casey just wants to know one thing: how can we fix it? On the way home, Casey tries to show her father the pin, but when Eddie touches it, nothing happens. Later that evening, Casey sneaks out of the house and bikes to a large field. She is surprised when picking it up because it seems to transport her to an endless field of wheat with a futuristic city in the distance. When she touches the pin again, she emerges in the middle of a stunning, futuristic city with jetpacks and hovertrains. Before the pin abruptly runs out of power and she finds herself having wandered waist deep into a lake, she becomes fascinated by seeing a rocket launch station and following a group of space travelers. Waking up her younger brother Nate, Pierce Gagnon, she asks him for assistance in trying to find another pin on the internet. Their search leads them to the website of the Houston, Texas, store blast from the past. Casey asks Nate to stand in for her while she takes a bus to Houston to speak with the store owners as they only have a street address and no email or phone number. The following day, Athena sees Nate outside their house asking to see Casey. Casey arrives at Blast from the Past and meets the owners Ursula, Catherine Hahn, and Hugo, Keegan-Michael Key. When Nate tries to inform Athena that Casey is away, she accuses him of lying and demands to know where she really is. When the two question Casey about where she obtained the pin, her statements that she just found it enrage them because they believe the pin is a key to unlocking a universe made by some of the greatest minds in history who went by the name Plus Ultra. Casey is spared when Athena appears and uses a time bomb, a device that momentarily stops time in a 15-foot radius, to stop the two in their tracks. Things take a bizarre turn when the two seize two actual working laser pistols and attempt to kill her. As the two escape, Casey and Athena engage in combat, during which Athena skewers Hugo and pulls off Ursula's head. The young girl helped the two of them escape by breaking into a car after Casey and Athena fled the store before Hugo self-destructed. In the car, Athena explains to Casey that the two people they encountered were audio-animatronic figures and that she was the one who gave Casey the pin. Athena has suffered harm as a result of the altercation, and Casey becomes alarmed when she discovers that the young girl is also a robot. The small robot is hit by a truck as Casey tries to flee. However, Athena quickly recovers and pursues Casey, eventually catching up to her. Athena claims she is from the location Casey saw when she touched the pin, which also happened to be her last one, but it may not be there for long. After a brief discussion, Casey is willing to accept that Athena won't hurt her. Back in Houston, police are searching through the store's rubble when a black van pulls up, and many people get out, led by a smiling man who introduces himself as Dave Clark, Matthew McCall. Athena wants them to go to Pittsfield, New York, to see a man named Frank Walker. Dave pulls out a device that causes the officers in the area to dissolve when one of the officers discovers the burned remains of Ursula's skull. When they are defeated, he tells the other party members to get in touch with Governor Nix because driving all night has worn Casey out. However, she wakes up on the side of the road with Athena driving away. She disregards the prohibited trespassing notice and enters the property after spotting a mailbox nearby with the name Walker on it. A man on the other side of the front door begs Casey to leave as she approaches a barking dog but realizes it is only a realistic hologram when she notices it has left no paw prints in the ground. A concussive blast knocks her backward as she begs to be brought to the location the pin indicated, and Frank appears. As she begs to be carried there, Frank informs her that the location she saw doesn't actually exist. They pushed him out and blocked off all entrances since what she saw was a commercial for this location. Frank again orders Casey to leave, but she won't budge. After discovering that the cables coming from the main home are all connected to various antennae and satellite dishes as the day fades to night, Casey convinces Frank to enter the house by setting a neighboring tractor on fire. While exploring the house, Casey discovers some futuristic-looking devices, a room showing numerous political upheaval, along with a countdown clock and a probability detector. Frank manages to get back inside the house and tries to get Casey to leave once more, but she refuses and demands to know what she has just witnessed. Casey claims she would naturally want to know, but if she learned the day she would die, she wouldn't believe it and would try to find a method to change the future. Frank asks this after realizing she won't just leave. The chance percentages drop by the tiniest amount, but the displays behind her all start to flicker, and Frank notices. Suddenly, sensors pick up intruders, and a black van with figures in dark suits is visible. When Frank tries to strengthen his home, the invaders break in and expose themselves to be audio-animatronic figures. Before Casey and Frank enter the bathtub, which launches them out of the house as the former inventor self-destructs his home, Frank manages to gather a few items and shove them in a bag. The bathtub lands in a neighboring pond, and Casey and Frank emerge to see Athena in a truck nearby. Frank at first refuses, but eventually relents, willing to accompany them as they leave the house. Thank you for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe.